Cleo, what's going on? Alright, so I'm going to do a little demonstration video here and give you an idea as to what I can do with my tool as far as helping you with your golf swing. And this is just going to be two pictures that we're going to take a look at. We're going to do this one down the line and this face-on view. We're going to be reviewing your stance. Alright, so one thing here you do very well is that your position of your weight in relation to this horizontal direction here is fantastic. It's directly over your ankle, and then your weight goes back behind you with your bum. That's perfect. And also, too, your arms are hanging down below your shoulders. They could be out away from you a little more. We want to see it more in this area. But most people have their arms, hanging out here, which is what you want to do. If you have your arms too close to your body, then you're going to get yourself too vertical with your golf swing. And then we're going to cause too steep of an angle. The main thing here that we're seeing in your stance that causes me some concern is the rounding of the back. What we're going to want to see is a nice flat back. And there's some natural curvature to the spine, but the reason why we want to do this is that your vertebrae are stacked on top of each other, like so. And when they're properly aligned with how their spine's supposed to go, it allows the vertebrae to rotate, and it allows each vertebrae to rotate, and each one does about 1 to 3 degrees, and then they work all together to get your 90 degrees of turn in your backswing. But what happens is when you have excess curvature of the spine, is that, zoom in, we don't need to here. What happens is when the spine's curved, then it pinches the vertebrae. And what this does is it limits the movement when trying to rotate the vertebrae because it crunches in and it grinds. So not only are you not going to be able to get the shoulder turn that you need as easily, you can end up doing wear and tear on the inside part of the crunching there to your spine, which is definitely not good. And it causes a lot of lower and the lower back here, and then also the upper back. So what we're going to want to see is that if you take your abdomen muscles and pull them in towards your spine, that will flatten out the lower back. And then when you go to bend down into your stance, what you're going to want to do is have your shoulders more rolled back, like you were in a military stance. Like if you were at attention in a military stance with your shoulders rolled back and really flat back and standing really tall, that's what you're going to want to imagine before you start hinging down into your stance. And it does, due to the width of your chest, that may be a little difficult, so you can get away with a little bit of curvature in the back, but you do want to get it as flat as you can for your with the way your body works. I have a large chest myself, so my back's a little more rounded than most men, but try to get it as flat as possible. It's a little difficult to see because of your hair, but it doesn't appear that your chin is dropping down too much. But if you do feel that you're tilting your head down to look at the ball, then you want to make an adjustment there. That is also part of keeping the back flat is your neck as well. You don't want to bend your head down to see the ball. You want to bend your whole body down to see the ball. So you want to bend the body down to see the ball instead of tilting the head down, because that will it'll not allow you to have room for your left shoulder to go underneath your chin when you're making your shoulder turn, if you tilt your chin down. So then what you end up having to do is tilting your head sideways to allow for the room. As you go back, you'll see a lot of people tilt their heads. And then what ends up happening when you tilt your head is that you tend to lean back towards the target. Because as your head's tilting back towards the target, your shoulders start tilting back that direction as well. So that's one thing that we want to try to avoid there. So just straight as you can with the back. This is good here with the lower body. And then you can get your hands away from you a little more. It should be the front of your left hand, or your right hand, the front of your right hand here should be just about directly underneath your chin. You seem to appear to have a little longer of a neck than most, which is not a bad thing, obviously, but maybe when you get everything lined up here with your back and pulling your shoulders back, you may look more like right here. So you do want your arms hanging freely down from your shoulder joints, but you don't want to have your hands too close to you, because what will happen is it causes a very steep plane here. This would be your elbow plane that you're going to be swinging on if everything's done properly with where you're setting up from. So this is a very steep angle here. We would want to see something a little more along the lines of that. Even though it is a shorter iron. And that's not very much different than what you had, but that small angle there could make a huge difference in the way that you're striking the ball. If you're too, we'll leave that for another time. But everything that we've discussed here so far will be mostly fixed by pulling the abs in and rolling the shoulders back. Then other things will follow. Your arms will naturally fall more under your shoulders and more away from your body, and then just keep your chin up too. So those three things in your stance will help fix everything in your setup here from this angle. So let's go ahead and take a look at the other angle here, and your distribution of your weight and how your stance width is perfect. These are hip joints here. You're about 2 inches outside of your hip joints, which is perfect. Anybody that ever tells you shoulder width apart for your stance is a fool, because your legs here are not connected to your shoulders. They're connected to your hips. And we all have different shoulder to hip ratios. So with that being said, some people have really broad shoulders and narrow hips. Why on earth would you base it on your shoulders? If that's the case for you, you're a lot more narrow stance if you have narrow hips, because that's how you're going to be able to keep your balance. So this part you do perfect. And one thing we're going to want to see here is that if you go down if you go whole way down here, go down your axis here, you're pretty straight up and down. And what this does when you are straight up and down, when you shift your weight in the backswing and then begin to rotate, what it's going to do is, if you are straight up and down, as you begin to rotate, you're going to start leaning back towards the target. So then you're going to end up getting a steep angle of attack into your downswing. So we don't want that. What you're going to want to see is, if you take a line from your torso to the inside of your knee, this this is how your torso and shoulder line should look. Maybe not quite as drastic. So what we need to do is you want to bump a little bit of weight to your left side, and then you can take your club and then put...
In the other video that I'm sending to you as well, I was in the middle of saying how to go about moving your weight to the left side, which we're going to go over more when we do the weight shift video, which would be after you're comfortable with your setup here. That's the next thing we're going to go over is weight shift. But you use the muscles on the outside of your glutes to pull your body over to that side. If you push from the opposite side, you can go past where your joint is comfortable, and you can end up hurting the joint. If you push with your opposite side, you can feel the outside of the joint starting to get a lot of pressure on it, and in the midst of a golf swing, that can do a lot of damage. So the side that you're going to, so in your backswing, you'd be your right leg, clench the outside part of your glute. So, between your hip joint and your, the backside of your butt, in that region there, clench that muscle. And what that will do is it'll pull you over so that your weight's directly over top of your right leg on that side, and it won't go any further no matter how hard you clench that muscle, because it's not physically possible to pull a muscle past the joint. So you want to keep that in mind when moving your muscles. When you're doing pushing or pulling actions, you always want to pull, so that way you can't overextend joints. So in this part here, I went off on a tangent in the other video, so I missed on explaining that, but I wanted to catch this right now and say it during this analysis. And yeah, I've been having some problems uploading this video, so I had to record it on my phone.
You're up against your chest. This is how I used when I was learning how to do it. This is what I did. Is I put the club up against my torso here, and then tilted. I would shift my weight left, and then tilted my upper body backwards until the club head was pointing at the inside of my knee. So I had the club on my chest, like so, as I was tilting back. And what that'll do is once you have your upper body tilted away from the target, when you go to rotate, you shift your weight back and you rotate, you would then at that point be centered over top of the ball instead of leaning back toward the target. So that's really the only thing as far as your stance goes. You can see here how the shoulders are rounded a little bit from what we talked about the other angle. You can see the shoulders rounding down. You want to look a little more like more boxy in the shoulders when you have them pulled back. Now, the grip here, there's some concerns. The V's on your thumbs.
Now, this is also an older picture that I found on your Instagram too, and you said you were working on your grip. So if you made the changes that I'm going to explain here, then don't worry about it. But what I'm going to describe here with the thumbs is important. It prevents the club from being able to move around wherever it wants. And then I'll show you more about the grip. If you want to learn more about that, just let me know and I'll send you a video about how to grip the club most efficiently.
And your index fingers are open, and what that allows is for the club here to slide through your hands. It can slide in that gap. between your thumb and your fingers. So what that's going to do is when that's allowed to go between that gap, is it can move the club in the horizontal direction a fairly good amount. You may have a perfect swing, but if you don't keep a death grip on this club, which you don't want, then that club could slide back and forth in between your thumbs and index finger. So what we want to see is these pressed together more, and especially in your left hand. That's pretty opened up. You want the index finger and the thumb pressed together, but the rest of it looks good. You know, you have a strong left hand, which is good. You have the club resting on the palm, on the underside of the palm there, with your left hand, which is good. We just need to get those thumbs together. That'll give you a lot of accuracy, which you won't even really think about it. Once you get comfortable having your grip that way, you'll be a lot more consistent and not even really realize that you had done anything to fix it. Now, in this other view here, there appears to be quite a bit of tension in your forearms, which would lead me to believe that you're gripping the club pretty tight. You don't want to do that, because what happens is when you tense a muscle, it wants to be untensed. So we want to tense our muscles up in the order that we want them to untense in the downswing. And the very last thing that we want to release in the downswing is the wrists. So if your wrists are tense from the beginning and your forearms are tense in the beginning, you are going to end up releasing those first. And what's going to happen is that when you're coming down in the downswing, your club is going to be working away from you as opposed to coming down. It's going to be working out away from you, and then you're going to lose all the power that you build up in the backswing up here in the upper half of the swing. You'll see, if you watch slow motion videos of a lot of amateurs, you'll see their arms here, the club back here, and the first thing that happens when they start their downswing is that this angle starts going that way before their body starts moving this direction at all. So, a couple frames later, you'll see, their arms might be here. Their arms might be here, and then they're already at 90 degrees when they were at 45, a few frames ago. And then by the time they get down with their arms level to the ground, or when their club should be parallel to the ground, their club's going to be actually down like that. So you'll see, as their arms are hanging down perpendicular, and the club should be parallel to the ground, it's going to be opened up quite a bit more. And then they just end up dragging the club through the impact zone. So that's something you want to make sure that you don't do with your arms, is tense those up. So the first thing that we want to load in the backswing is our right glute. And then you're going to pull with the right shoulder to turn the shoulders, and that's going to load up the abdomen here. And then you're going to get to the very top, and then once you get up to the top and your arms are up here and the club's up here, you haven't even fully set the wrist yet to put the club in an angle, then you're going to want to shift the weight forward. And then when you're shifting the weight forward, that's going to cock the wrists and create that steeper angle. So you're actually going to be starting the downswing before you finish the backswing, which is one of the most crazy concepts for amateur golfers to fully understand. their stand. They want to use their arms so much in the backswing and early in the downswing that they end up robbing themselves of a lot of power, which we don't want. We're gonna end up picking up a lot of the clip head speed for you very quickly. You're gonna be hitting the ball a lot further as we'll start working together. I've already made this video way longer than I should have because I tend to ramble. You guys be talking about golf, I'll be talking all day. But yeah, just the tips about the stance, get a little more axis tilt away from the target and relax your grip and flat back by pulling in the abdomen, rolling the shoulders back, and keeping your chin up. If you do those things, your stance is going to be absolutely perfect, which it's already pretty damn good. But you'll be surprised at how much better your golf swing is going to be and how much better it's going to feel when your stance is perfect without even changing anything else. So I just wanted to use a little demonstration there. I've already used up 18 minutes of your day, but hopefully this will help you out, and we'll look forward to doing more in the future.